Hi, I'm Ali. You're on Queer Conversations, brought to you by Lesbians on the Loose. Paula Wallace is the founder of the Liberty Foundation, a not-for-profit that rehomes animals used in research across Australia. Lottle has been a big part of her life since she came out in the 90s. Hi Paula, welcome to Queer Conversations with Lesbians on the Loose.
Thanks for having me.
I'd like to start by just asking you, what generation are you from? Where are you from? Where are you living now, and how do you identify?
Okay, well, I'm Gen X, so I was born in 1972. I was born and raised in Sydney. I currently live on the Central Coast of New South Wales, and I would say I identify as queer, I guess would be the closest description, if there was one.
Great.
Yeah, it's kind of changed over the years, but yeah, I guess I identify as a woman and queer.
Okay, great. So I guess to start off with, tell me a little bit about you as a young person coming out and coming to terms with your queer identity.
Well, I don't know if you'd say I was that young. I think maybe people are coming out a bit younger these days, but for me, I think it was around 19 or 20 years of age, I think. I was trying to kind of think about it before I came here today, and I think it was probably, well, I know that I was spending a lot of time in the lesbian community in the early mid-90s. How I came out is kind of an interesting story. I guess everybody's is, but I had a friend, my best friend from school, and her mum, after being married to my friend's dad for many, many years, came out one day, was a lesbian, came out, and she then moved to the inner west, and I didn't hear from her for a while. And then my friend contacted me and said, "Oh, Mum's invited you around for dinner. I think you should come." And I'm like, "Okay." So I went round for dinner. She was living with her partner at the time, and as I was leaving, she thrust a copy of Lottle at me and said, "I think you might find this interesting reading." I quickly looked at the title, saw Lesbians on the Loose, and went, "Whoa, okay." Turned very red and then quickly left. I went home and kind of furiously read through it and thought, "Whoa, okay, that's like a whole new world." And then just hid it under my bed. And that's kind of how it started. I mean, they could see what I couldn't see clearly, and had seen it for like a long time, I think. I think lots of people probably had, but I was living in a very kind of straight, I guess, straight kind of environment, and I was quite sheltered, and I didn't really understand that there were other ways of being, and I just knew that what I saw around me I didn't identify with and had never really identified with. So for me, it was a process of being just asexual for many, many years, really, when I was growing up in my teenage years, and just being quite secluded and just disassociated really from who I was, and because I couldn't fit myself into any of the boxes that I was given, and I wasn't prepared to fit myself into those boxes. And so for me, it just opened up in a whole new world for me when I started to read about, hear about, see other women in the world that I identified with. And, it felt like that process kind of took forever. But I'm glad I kind of hung in there, because those years were pretty difficult for me, and kind of set up, a bit of a legacy for me that was quite difficult for me to deal with in my 20s, even though I had come out by that point. Yeah, so I think for me, recognising that there were actually other lesbians out there, and that is what I identified with most, was a real breakthrough for me. And then I, did pull the magazine out from under my bed at some point, and I actually went to a coming out group, which was run by the Gay and Lesbian Counselling Service, which was a really fantastic community initiative that was running in Albion Street, Surrey Hills. And I was working at a major newspaper that will remain nameless down in Surrey Hills, and went up there one time and I started attending this group, and that for me was my way of being able to express who I was, to meet other people who I could identify with. And, I met my friend Tamaris there, and we're still friends today.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was once you started reading Lesbians on the Loose, there was no going back. It seems like Lesbians on the Loose was almost like a doorway to community, a sense of community that you didn't feel connected with.
Absolutely it was, yeah, absolutely it was. I'd never seen it, and I never would have probably come across that magazine if it hadn't been for my friend's mum who gave it to me. And that was the only way that she could really communicate that to me in a way that I wasn't going to just run away and be completely embarrassed, I think. It was a great source of embarrassment for me that I didn't understand really who I was for quite a long time. Yeah, then I started going out. I mean, and Tamaris and I just went to every event there was. Like, we were just, I mean, back then it was kind of different, I think.
So give me some insight into what it was like going out in Sydney in the 90s.
Yeah.
As a queer woman.
It's very different from how it is now in a way, but sort of not too. Like, it's we were always out. I mean, that's the thing. We were always out at something. There was a lot of opportunities for us to sort of gather and assemble, I think, you know, as a community. And that's something that I really miss now because I don't really see that happening as much. And I mean things like, yeah, we had a lot of lesbian-only spaces. Well, not a lot, we had some. And I really miss that. We had a lot of, you know, marches and gatherings and events, and there was always something to go to. And, you know, we were much more out kind of on the street rather than, you know, inside at home sort of reading dating profiles and, you know, meeting people online. It was just a really different, I mean, this
in-person connection.
Yeah, I mean, this was pre-internet though, like this was pre-mobile phones. So, yeah.
It's interesting because a lot of younger people are now saying, you know, they wish there were spaces where they could just be with the LGBT community outside of, say, a nightclub. And at the same time, they wish there were sort of more women only or women and trans people only spaces in Sydney. And we have lost a lot of that.
Yeah.
So have you, over the years, seen that transition?
Yeah, I've seen it diminish, definitely. And I think it's really important to have, you know, queer only or lesbian only spaces. For me, it was so formative in me, not only coming out, but being able to form, you know, a proud, positive identity about who I am. And, you know, it was really informed by a lot of those events that I went to and the diversity of women that I would meet. Sure, it wasn't perfect. I'm not saying that those environments were perfect for everybody because they weren't. And I'm not saying that they were inclusive of everyone either or all the lesbian identities, but it certainly did create a space where I could meet like-minded people in a way that I couldn't in any other part of my life. And also coming from, you know, the background that I did where I was so isolated from any form of community, it was something that I really latched onto for a number of years.
And in that community, especially when we're talking back in the 90s, was there a lot of, did you interact with lesbians and queer people of all different ages, older than you, younger than you? Was there that sense of intergenerational connection?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the things that comes to mind for me is we used to do, I mean, I remember going on Reclaim the Night marches and, you know, International Women's Day marches and things like that where we'd kind of take over the streets. And the only time I remember doing that recently was when the marriage equality thing came through, and I was at Taylor Square when it happened, and we just literally just surged onto Oxford Street and just took over the streets and had this incredible experience. And it took me right back to my experiences in the early and mid-90s where we used to do that like quite often. And it was an incredibly empowering experience because back then, and it really wasn't that long ago that we're talking about, it, you know, it's 20, 25 years ago, but there was virtually no gay or queer or gender diverse representation on mainstream media, for instance, like on television or film or, you know, I mean, I remember if a film came out that had a lesbian character or a queer character in it, they would set up a special screening and it'd be like an event, you know, it'd be a queer event that we'd all go to.
Amazing that someone was represented.
Yeah, it was a really big deal. Or you'd go to the Queer Film Festival or something like that to be able to see those kinds of things. Now you can just log onto Netflix and they've got a whole section on, you know, lesbian, gay kind of movies. But back then it was different. So being able to walk out on the street and be visible had a great impact for me to hold up a sign at a march, you know, representing who I am. When I was working in a very mainstream male-dominated industry where I couldn't really be that. And so I found those things very powerful. And one of the things I remember from those marches was the diversity of women that I would see there of all different ages. And just the sense that I would get, often that if it weren't for the women and the feminists that had gone before us, that I wouldn't even be there, that event wouldn't have even been on, that gay liberation wouldn't have even happened. And
gratitude for elders in the community.
Yeah, and just a great deal of respect, for what they'd done, and seeing them at the marches and hearing them speak, and was always very inspiring for me.
Do you have any formative relationships, like friendships with older queer women who kind of you could be who were role models or inspiring to you?
Yeah, there are a few that stand out over time that have been mother-type figures for me, and that's been really important. I've also had just a number of strong women who've mentored me in different areas, like particularly professionally, and that has also been, I've sought them out because, I needed that kind of encouragement and support.
Yeah, you mentioned obviously as a journalist and writer in the 90s there wasn't much representation in mainstream media, and that's the space that you were working in at the time.
Yeah.
So did you find that an isolating experience? Were you ever discriminated on the basis of your sexuality?
When I was working in mainstream media, particularly, it was very male-dominated at the time, and probably still is, I imagine. I ended up leaving that industry because I just didn't feel that it kind of aligned with my values and allowed me enough, freedom of expression. So I actually moved into a different area of the media, specifically because of that. I found that was the only way really that I could truly express myself, was to have my own business and to have autonomy in that way. So that means that in some ways I've been more isolated because I haven't been working in big workplaces, mainly working on my own. But I've chosen to do that, to sacrifice that in order to have my independence and to have an authenticity about what I do.
Do you seek out connections with younger members of the lesbian or queer community? Is that something that you think is important, to have those intergenerational connections with young people who are just joining the community?
Yeah, for sure. I am involved in a number of community organisations, and, I think when there's somebody there who, who wants to, who needs support, I'm always there to put my hand out, for sure. But the thing is, I feel though that, my experience is limited, and I'm not necessarily speaking for, all lesbians or all queer women or, or the community as such. Like, I would never put myself up to be any kind of spokesperson. I'm white, I'm middle class. I think I'd much rather hear from, women who don't get the microphone. I don't necessarily think that I need to be given a voice around anything in particular. I'd like to see, other women, who identify in different ways. I'd love to hear their experiences and their stories. And so I can offer what I can, but it's limited.
You mentioned before that you've been devoting a lot of your time to your own venture, which is that you founded the Liberty Foundation, a not-for-profit organisation. So please tell us a little bit about what the Liberty Foundation does.
It is related to actually what we're talking about in a way, because I sort of felt like over the years that being who I am and how I identify, sometimes I feel like I'm a bit sort of 10, 15 years behind everybody else. And when I say everybody else, I mean kind of mainstream Australia, in the sense that, it took me a long time to understand who I am, how I identify, who I'd like to have relationships with, then to have those relationships, to build a career. So I kind of feel like, it's taken me quite a long time to come to a place where I understand, what my heart's desire really is in terms of, and what I'm here for and what I'd like to contribute. Through that whole process of maturing and understanding more about myself, I came to a place where I felt that I wanted to start this not-for-profit. And I know everybody says that. They want to start a not-for-profit. Everyone's going to start a charity about something.
But you actually did it. So.
But yeah, I did. I'm in the process. It's a work in progress, let's say. But, even though it came, to me when I was in my early 40s, and I sort of thought, is it too late for me to start something like this? I feel like I've had a career. I feel like I'm a bit over the hill, actually. And in some ways it's reinvigorated me, because I've thought, no, I'm now 48. I think No, look, you can do this. It's never too late. This is a great idea, and you're doing great work. So I'm sort of just rolling with it at the moment. And what it is Liberty Foundation is actually a not-for-profit which has the sole mission to rehome animals from research facilities in Australia. We're at a very exciting stage now. We've been developing it for about 4 or 5 years, and we're now at a stage where we can actually launch the charity, which we're going to do from the 19th to the 24th of April. And that's going to be our big coming out, I guess, in a way, to say we're here, this is what we do, please get engaged with us. Whoever you are, please come on board. So we're asking people to just go to our website, our Facebooks, to follow us and to just learn a bit more about what we do.
So what kind of animals are used in research in Australia?
Yeah, this is a question that we get quite often, because people don't realise that we do use a wide range of animals in research. So at Liberty, we're focused on rehoming the animals that can be pets and companions. So we're focused on the dogs, the cats, rats, mice, guinea pigs and rabbits and fish. They're the main animals that we've rehomed so far. These animals are used in a wide range of settings, from university level research to private medical research foundations, government-owned agencies. So they can be used for lots of things: testing products, experimental work around disease prevention, that kind of thing. And they're also used to test the products that we use on our pets, on our dogs and cats. So yeah, we're focused on the full range, but the good news is now that there is now an alternative for them other than euthanasia, which has been the common practice.
So yeah, unfortunately most of them would be, or all of them would be euthanized. But so what is this alternative?
So the alternative that we're offering is to help the research establishments to make the rehoming process easy and simple. So to take away any of the barriers that may have been there previously, and to pave the way for them to experience the positive results, not only for their staff and the people that are working with the animals every day, because it's a great morale booster for them knowing that at the end of the research that the animals are going to be able to go on and live out the course of their natural lives. I mean, the animals are always going to be the primary stakeholder in everything that we do, and we put their welfare. Really, that's the service that we're offering, because up until now, research establishments have found it difficult to do rehoming. Some of them have tried, some of them do actually do their own rehoming. But for the vast majority of animals, the alternative at the end of research is euthanasia.
So what are the animals that can be rehomed by the Liberty Foundation?
Pretty much any animal can be rehomed from research. If they are of sound mind and body, they can be rehomed, even if they're at an advanced age or they've got sort of minor issues that can be managed. Pretty much any animal that can go into somebody's home as a pet or companion. We can also take small animals that like farm animals like goats and sheep, for instance, and we've got a wide network of sanctuaries who can take those animals as well. But primarily we're working on the adopt foster model, which is that the animals go out to families adopted into the community or fostered in people's homes.
So how do these animals transition into their new lives that are obviously vastly different from what they've experienced before?
Yeah, I mean, for each individual animal it's different. So some of them have had more human contact than others. Some have had a more normal kind of living environment, I suppose, than others may have. So with our mice and rats, for instance, they usually come from quite small housing in the university or the research establishment. And when they come out, we put them into, adopters take them and put them into, very elaborate, 4-tiered cages and with digging boxes and all kinds of things.
Lots of space and freedom.
So it's just, for them, it's just like a party, really. There's no transition. They just jump right in there. And then you've got dogs and cats who may take a little bit longer, maybe a week or two to kind of adjust. But it would be sort of comparable to taking an animal from one home and putting them into another. Sometimes it's really that simple. And then other dogs, for instance, may take a bit longer in foster care, maybe a couple of months to, I guess, acclimatise to being in a house and to learning new things. Like they may not have been introduced to stairs before or glass doors or televisions, that kind of thing. So we help them to acclimatise. And what we're finding is that, we've rehomed over 350 animals now since we started at the end of 2017. We actually started rehoming then, and we've been building the charity up over that time to a point where we can now launch. But we have been sort of madly rehoming and learning a lot over that period. And of those 350 animals, they have all transitioned successfully into their new homes. We have
Wow.
not had any come back for any reason. So I would say, how do they transition? Extremely well.
So what inspired you to start the Liberty Foundation?
Well, that was quite a long process, I suppose. It's sort of been 30 years in the making, really, if I think about it. I was introduced to, at work experience when I was in year 10, I went to a university laboratory and I saw vivisection taking place, which is an experimental procedure on a live animal. And that had quite a lasting impact on me. And I did some advocacy work for a couple of years and then I kind of moved on to other things. But it always sort of stayed with me to some extent. And then I was just at a point in my life, 4 or 5 years ago, where I was ready for something different. I really wanted to do something which was more aligned with my values and which would be very purposeful and meaningful for me. And that's when I came up with the idea of this and spent a lot of time researching it and talking to different people about it and building it up to what I think today is something that is, professional, effective, and is going to be sustainable into the future.
And it's also not done in Australia apart from by you guys, right?
Yeah, there is one other group in Melbourne, Beagle Freedom, and that Beagle Freedom is like a movement that's come from the US, which is in numerous states in the United States, where they have rehomed beagles specifically from research establishments. And Beagle Freedom in Melbourne does some really wonderful work. They focus mainly on dogs and cats. So we're the only other organisation that is dedicated solely to research or ex-research animals, and we focus on the full range of animals that can come out. So, as I said before, from the small pocket pets, up to even farm animals. That's what makes us unique, is that we are dedicated solely to only rehoming animals from research.
So your aim is not to stop animals being used in research like some other activist groups.
There are some other groups that are working in that area. Our mission and purpose at Liberty is solely rehoming animals from research establishments. So we don't really take a formal position on that. What we're managing to do is to forge relationships with the research establishments that, and obviously there's a lot of mutual trust involved in that, and for them to be able to move forward with something that's very new for them, which obviously to some extent will raise awareness around the fact that animals are used in research in Australia. But what we're trying to do is to create a situation whereby people can engage with that issue, which is, by the way, an issue that is close to many people's hearts and something many people feel passionately about, but possibly feel powerless to do anything to help or to change. We're trying to create a situation whereby people can engage with it in a really positive way.
Empowering people.
In an empowering way, exactly, so that they can say, I feel like I'm doing something here. I feel like I'm making a difference. If I adopt my 2 rats and I take them home with me, I don't know if many people don't know, but rats are actually really wonderful pets. They are incredibly interactive, incredibly smart, very loyal, and you can they'll sit on your shoulder. They're just like your best friend. So, you take them home, you start to form a relationship with these animals. It's a very personal thing, and you think, wow, to think that I've been able to experience this when this poor creature could have lived out their life in a research establishment or been there for a couple of months and then been humanely killed at the end of it. It gives people a much greater insight, I think, into the lives of these animals.
Yeah, I guess rats aren't an animal that you think, oh, wow, they'd be a great companion animal, but it seems like they're capable of a broad spectrum of emotions and feelings.
Feelings,
Yeah.
What's interesting about the rats is that we actually have quite a demand for our rats, so we have a bit of a waiting list. There's a real sub-community or subculture of people out there that are very passionate about their rats, and they've come forward and really supported Liberty from the beginning, and we're very grateful that those people have engaged with us and have taken our rats into their homes, and they send us back wonderful videos and pictures of what they're doing and how they're thriving in their new environments. And I just urge everyone to go and have a look at even if you're not into rats, go and have a look at our Facebook page or our YouTube channel. Have a look at some of our videos.
Become into rats. You might like rats afterwards.
And you'll see in our videos, what we hope to impart with our videos is, yes, to show the behind the scenes of what happens when we rescue the animal or rehome it and where they go to, the kind of lives that they lead. But it's also really to encapsulate the values of what Liberty is about, which is about inclusion, it's about hope, it's about, yes, compassion, of course, but ultimately it's about love. And we hope that really comes across in our videos.
So What roles do volunteers play in all this?
Yeah, a huge role because, I mean, including myself, nobody's sort of being paid for any of this. And we need volunteers to make this work and to scale it up because we're at a stage now where we're at a bit of a tipping point. We've got, a certain number of research establishments signed up with us. We've got a certain number of animals coming through. But we know that there's thousands more that we could be rehoming. But to do that, we need the help of volunteers to help us with transport, with marketing, with our videos, with, all aspects of what we're doing now. And we've sort of built the structure. Myself and the directors have built this structure, which is amazing. And now we're really asking everyone to come on board and to make it really grow and become as big as it can be.
So how can community members get involved with Liberty Foundation?
Well, there's lots of ways you can engage with us. So you can go to the website, you could go to our Facebook page, Liberty Foundation Australia. We also have a YouTube channel. And we'll be getting onto other platforms as well, but that's where we are right now. And we'll be doing, as I said, our launch from the 19th to the 24th of April.
And what's involved in the launch?
So that's World Laboratory Animal Week. So this is like an annual event. And we're hoping to raise the profile of World Laboratory Animal Week and make it into just, something every year. Is a time for people just to pause and reflect on the animals that are in research establishments around Australia. I mean, if you look at the statistics, I think the latest one's up to 2017, in the 10 years up to there. I think the average number of animals utilised for research purposes in Australia was about 6.4 million. The numbers have been rising in recent years, and people are often surprised when I say that, but they are the actual figures. That's across all states and territories. And then if you look at the numbers, if you drill down into the numbers in New South Wales, we'd be looking at anywhere between 700 to 1,000 dogs a year that might be available for rehoming, and maybe 500 cats, and then many thousands of small animals, pocket pets. And so that's the sort of demand that is there for us to rehome these animals. And we're focused on New South Wales so far because I happen to live here and I've been doing most of the work of the charity. However, it's set up in a way that we can expand into any state or territory. So we're hoping with the support of the public and the community getting involved that we can expand into every state and territory.
So what are the goals of the Liberty Foundation in the future?
So I think it will remain the same throughout, and we've kept it simple from the beginning, which is just to rehome as many animals as we possibly can from research facilities. What we'd love to do is to expand, but also right now it's really about just awareness. It's just about letting everybody know that we're here. Letting everyone know that if they're looking to adopt a pet into their family, or they know somebody who is, to maybe give us a try. Just maybe go on our Facebook or our website, see what animals we have available for adoption or foster. See if you haven't owned a rat before or a mouse and you really like that to experience that, or your children, give us a call. I'm available 24/7. I take calls from people all the time who are interested in adopting animals from labs. Really, the best kind of marketing that we have is word of mouth, because so many people come to us just because they've heard about it from somebody else, a friend, a relative. So please, if you, just anywhere you are, just if it comes up in conversation, just mention us, just say, there's people rehoming animals from labs, they're really great pets, and it's just a great thing to get behind.
Well, since learning about your foundation, I've already told a few people and discovered that a few people are actually rat people that I didn't know.
Yeah,
so
secret rat people.
I think word of mouth is really powerful. I guess a change of gear, thinking back to the start of the interview when you were talking about the significance of Lottle in your coming out story, it seems like the Liberty Foundation is almost linked to that, in that you're kind of living your truth and it's very values driven. What does Lottle mean to you, especially now that it's relaunching in this new digital and podcast format?
Oh, I think that's very exciting, the way that it's evolving, and I'll be really fascinated to watch that as it progresses. I mean, Lottle has been, it's an interesting question because it's been significant in lots of different times of my life. It's kind of funny in that way. And not just because I know Silka, the publisher. I actually have known Silka for quite a long time. I think in my mid-20s, I first met her because I was dating her flatmate, and and then we worked together on Lesbiz, which was like a lesbian business association, and a few other things, and so we've sort of stayed in touch over the years. I think I actually have done some work for Lottle from time to time. I think I might have written a few stories, and I've done some sub-editing, I think. But I've always had some association with it, and because I just think, and I know the women who started Lottle as well, and it's, you know, from those real community roots, it was really important back then to have, like I said before, like having lesbian spaces is really important, and Lottle was one of those spaces, if you like, certainly for me, because if there was anything I wanted to know or anything that was on, I would go there. It was inspiring, it was interesting, it was entertaining, you know, and it's kind of maintained that as the years have gone on. And, you know, I was really pleased when Silka took it on because, you know, she has such integrity, and I knew that the product, you know, that she would really look after it, and she has over many years of great dedication, I have to say. It's really exciting to see it evolve too into something new and to continue. I'd love to see it just continue forever, because I think that, you know, particularly in the days before there was internet and mobiles and the whole digital revolution, you know, we had magazines. That's what we had, and traditional media. And so Lottle has been so important in so many people's lives, and such an incredibly important place for community announcement and community awareness. So I'd love to see that continue. I'm really, really pleased to have been part of it and to be invited to this today. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you like our content, follow us and check out our website, lotl.com, to learn more.